To all my dear chess loving friends, I know today is a sad day because today is the rest day of candidates match, and these candidate matches have become such a inherent part of our life that a rest day feels something like an emptiness has enveloped us. So I decided to put together the best moments of the 9 rounds that have taken place and to just make a small presentation for you. So the first best moment according to me was the game between Aronian and Gelfand. In this position, Aronian was a pawn up and he decided that he wanted to trick Gelfand into playing a move like rook c8. So he played the move b4, hoping that he would make the move rook c8, and Gelfand fell into the trap. So can you spot the hidden tactic in this position? Aronian shocked everyone with the amazing move bishop h6. What a brilliant move. If the bishop is taken, then rook c8, bishop c8, knight f7, and the d8 bishop falls and white wins the game. Okay, Gelfand just went back and Aronian took the bishop takes c6, knight c6, bishop f6, b5, and after bd7 I was thinking that a long strategic game would ensue, but here Aronian again shocked me, and this was a beautiful moment for me in the tournament when he made the move g4. And with this move you can see that the bishop on f6 is suddenly lacking squares. It cannot go to g7 because then I would just simply exchange and take the pawn on a7. You cannot go to h8 because then knight e7 is a mate, and there are no more squares for the bishop. So the pawn move to g4 was really brilliant. Okay, let's look at another game. The next brilliant game for me was the game between Boris Gelfand and Magnus Carlsen. In this position, white is threatening the dangerous move f5. If he gets in that move, somehow the black king will start to feel very exposed. So the normal move of anyone would be queen c2, and then Gelfand would go queen b7, and then maybe Carlsen would have to retreat to queen a4. But you don't become 2-8-7-2 just like that. For that you have to calculate, and Carlsen made the very cold-blooded move b5, which was very shocking for me because he allowed this move f5, g into f5, queen into f5. He took the pawn on a3, queen h5, and he pushed this pawn to a5, and somehow the black king is really safe. The knight controls the dark square, the pawn controls the light squares, and in this way the king feels really safe. This was really one of the most amazing moments for me when it was shown that sometimes you have to calculate. Your intuition cannot do all the work. Okay, let's move to the next game. This was the third game that I felt was amazing. This was the game between Kramnik as white and Aronian as black. Kramnik is threatening to make a queen, and so Aronian's reply is forced. He put his bishop back, and now Kramnik could have just made a queen, bishop d8, bishop d8. Aronian could have made a queen, takes, and we would reach this position which would not be so easy for white to win. Therefore, Kramnik decided that before making this queen, I would like to press him more, and he brought his king in the battle. And here was the brilliant defensive move by Aronian. He didn't make a queen, but he played the amazing move f6. This was supremely calculated, and to make this move you need a good knowledge of basic theoretical positions. And so Kramnik took with the bishop Even if you would have taken with the pawn, it would have led to a similar position. Check. King goes up and knight into f6, and as they say, opposite color bishops are very drawish in nature. After king f7, bishop h7, king f6, king d5, king e7, Aronian had rightly estimated that this position is a draw. But he had to see in advance that to g4, king c6, king d8, g4, he had this amazing reply, which was bishop e1, stopping the pawns right in their track. If white could have pushed the pawn to g6, then he would have won the game if he could have removed the bishop. But now, if he plays the move g5, Aronian makes the move bishop h4, and you cannot push the pawn because then this is blocked and black can just make a queen. So in this way, after bishop e1, he had to play h3, bishop h4, and the pawns were blockaded and black achieved a draw. This was, according to me, a great defensive effort by Aronian. Okay, moving on, next game. This game was between the super solid technical player with white pieces, Vladimir Kramnik, and black was Ivanchuk, who was struggling in this tournament. And Kramnik, sensing that this was the right moment to get his first win of the tournament, sacrificed an exchange on f6, blowing up the pawn structure of black. And then he brought his knight into d4 angle, looking at these weak squares, bd7, and now queen d2 attacking the h6 pawn. Ivanchuk came up, and Kramnik here sacrificed the bishop into c6, and knight f5 check. Now king g6 is the only move. Now you know that Kramnik is a very, very objective player. He will take a draw even against a lower rated player if the position demands. But somehow, in the heat of the battle in this candidates tournament, he should have forced a draw here with nh4 check, king g7, knight f5. But he decided to fight on with rook a5, which is so uncharacteristic of Kramnik. And you can just see how the pressure of the tournament is getting into the players. Ivanchuk made excellent defensive move, rook h8, queen d4, rook g8, bringing all his pieces to the defense of the king, rook c5, queen d7, and slowly and steadily he was unraveling. And here, queen f4, h5. Now Kramnik understood that the best he could do was to try to force a draw with knight h4, king g7, knight f5. But here Ivanchuk could have played for a win with king f8, queen b8, and knight c8, blocking the check, and it's very difficult to see a win for white over here, and black is an entire rook up. But Ivanchuk was under severe time trouble, and he could find nothing better but to repeat the position and take a draw. The best thing about this was that even Kramnik became unobjective because of the pressure of the tournament. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is the game. Oh, this game is one of my favorites. It is white is Grischuk and black is Gelfand. You know, this is one of this feel good kind of a game in which, you know, we can see that all these top players of the world also blunder like us. Here white, Grischuk, put his knight into d6. I give you just 2 minutes to think why this is a horrible move. And Gelfand was able to spot the, what can I say, the weakness of this move, and he took the pawn on e5, knight e5. But no, the tactic is not to take this knight, because then you will just lose, because there is a mate on g7 happening. But the tactic now is to play this amazing move, knight f6. That's an exclamation move, and after the queen goes back to take the knight, and after queen a4 to take the pawn on h5. Black is simply a pawn up with a amazingly strong bishop and everything in his favor, but still he couldn't manage to win this game. But I would just like to bring your attention to this point, that one move tactic was missed by Grischuk. It was such a simple, so you can just be happy about it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is the game between Kramnik and Gelfand. Gelfand is white, Kramnik is black, and Kramnik here took his knight back to e8. He played an e8, and here Gelfand could have been alert and he could have spotted his opportunity and he could have played nf to g5, looking at this weak pawn threatening knight into d6 and bishop into h7, when the reply h6 is forced, queen h5, great move, h into g5, knight into g5, now threatening a deadly check on h7, as well as f7 pawn is hanging. There is no good way to defend these pawns. Knight f6, queen into f7, king h8, knight e6. How to defend the mate on g7? Only way is to play qg8. When you can take on b7, now the e6 knight cannot be taken because the a8 rook is hanging. So rook b8, good move. And white cannot defend the e6 knight in a good way with his queen. So he plays queen into g7, queen into g7, knight into g7, king into g7, and he has got 4 pawns for a piece, which I am sure that only white can play for a win in this position. It's very surprising that a player of Kramnik, who is so well known for his feel of danger, for sensing the danger well before the time, made a move like knight e8 in this position, and Gelfand couldn't find nfg5. He just retreated his knight back and the game ended in a draw after few moves. Okay, next one. This was the game which according to me showed that even the world number 1 Magnus Carlsen is not invincible. He too is susceptible to attacks and he can also miscalculate. Here Radjabov, who is playing with the black pieces, launched a massive attack on Carlsen with bishop g4. Carlsen removed his rook from the pin and Radjabov took the knight. Queen takes, nh4, queen e4, f3, and after g3 Carlsen thought that the knight had to retreat back, but he went into his position, and now I think this was what Carlsen had not seen. He cannot move his rook because queen e6 is threatening a mate over here, and then the knight goes away with a mate on g2. So if white plays king h1, queen h3, rook g1, then rook f6, and now a deadly sacrifice on h2 or just rook h6 will seal the win for black. And so Carlsen had to sacrifice the exchange over here, and but it is said that it's not so easy to beat a player who has a rating of 2872. Miraculously Carlsen was able to escape this game and Radjabov had to settle for a draw. But it showed that Carlsen is beatable, something that Vishy Anand can be happy about. Okay, so this game was something which I was terribly shocked when I saw it. Though the players were in time pressure, white was Boris Gelfand, black was Levon Aronian. Simply white is winning. He has got 2 extra pawns and he is having a very safe king to black's terribly exposed king. Now any logical player seeing the factor of the exposed black king would keep the queens on the board with maybe queen e2 or even better queen g5. But Gelfand made the move queen e5, which was so surprising for me that he couldn't resist the pressure in the position. He wanted to exchange the queens, and after queen takes, rook takes, bishop h5, rook h5, rook into a3, we reached the rook endgame, which was winning for white, but it took almost another 20 moves to win this position, whereas if he would have just kept the queens, he could have won in maybe another 5-6 moves. just shows that time pressure can induce very, very simple mistakes from even the best. So I would like to leave you in the last with a game which I did not understand even one bit. This was the game Swidler versus Grischuk. And we can analyze all the games with the computer, with our knowledge, but this game somehow was so complicated. It was over here white who pushed black with f4 first, and from here began the fireworks, which were so amazing. Black sacrificed knight into c4. I don't even want to analyze anything, you just have a treat. Bishop c4, b5 was played, attacking the bishop. He took the pawn, e into d5, and now he didn't take the pawn back, he played e5. d5, fe5, bishop g4, and white continued taking the pieces, e into f6. The queen was given up, another bishop was taken, and now after king g7, rook d, bishop into c5. Oh, I can even not guess the moves for white, and rook is attacked, but black plays h3. Oh my. And rook into d1, h into g2, rook g1, queen was made on the board, king f1, queen h4. Oh, this game continued for another few moves, but finally it ended in a draw. I would just say that please have a look at this sequence of 10 moves again and try to understand that chess is not just mechanical calculation. You can never actually be able to find the various combinations that are going on in the position. So in this position, I would like to leave you with this final game, which was so very complicated. Why did I make this small presentation? Well, I made it because I wanted to show that even the top guys don't play chess, don't make the perfect moves of Rybka. They make mistakes, but they are able to enjoy the game, and that is what we all must do. And so, looking forward to the last 5 rounds of the candidates match, and hope that they will bring many more exciting games for us to study and learn from. Thank you. This is Sagar Shah signing off.